year was 2056, exactly 2 decades after Earth had experienced its first documented alien invasion. The scars of that catastrophic event still lingered across major cities worldwide. But from the ashes of destruction emerged something unprecedented: global unity. World leaders who once squabbled over borders and resources found themselves united by a common purpose: survival. The formation of Earth's Space Defense Initiative wasn't just another military alliance. It represented humanity's collective determination to ensure what happened in '96 would never happen again. We're no longer Americans, Russians, or Chinese. President Elizabeth Lanford had declared at the ESD's inauguration, "We're Earthlings, and this is our home." The technological leap forward that followed was nothing short of miraculous. Engineers and scientists from former enemy nations worked side by side, reverse engineering the alien technology salvaged from crashed spacecraft. What might have taken centuries of independent research was accomplished in mere decades. Energy. Shields that could withstand nuclear blasts, gravitational manipulation devices, and weapons capable of piercing the toughest extraterrestrial materials. These weren't just theoretical concepts anymore, but practical tools in humanity's growing arsenal against the cosmic threat. The military strategy experts at the Pentagon often joked that Area 51 had gone from being the most secretive base on Earth to the most collaborative international workshop in history. The lunar base, aptly named Armstrong, represented humanity's first permanent foothold beyond Earth. Nestled in the Shackleton crater near the Moon's south pole, its reinforced domes glistened under the harsh solar glare, housing over 300 scientists, engineers, and military personnel. The base served dual purposes: scientific discovery and planetary defense. Its massive cannons, powered by the alien technology's energy core, could theoretically intercept and destroy incoming threats long before they reached Earth's atmosphere. Meanwhile, the smaller Mars outpost Bradbury functioned primarily as an early warning system, equipped with long-range sensors scanning the depths of our solar system for any sign of unusual activity. Patricia Whitmore, daughter of former President Thomas Whitmore, and now the ESD's Director of Communications, stood at the observation deck of the Washington Monument Memorial, gazing at the reconstructed Capitol building. "Dad always said they'd come back," she whispered to David Levinson, now the ESD's Director of Research and Development. David nodded solemnly, his fingers absently tracing the schematic of their new flagship spacecraft, the Defiance. The vessel incorporated everything they'd learned from the alien wreckage and represented the pinnacle of human engineering enhanced by extraterrestrial technology. "The question isn't if they return," David replied, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd faced the extraterrestrial threat firsthand, "but whether we'll be ready when they do." The global defense grid had transformed Earth's night sky. Satellites equipped with advanced detection systems formed a protective web around the planet, constantly scanning for any wormhole activity or approaching spacecraft. On the ground, cities had been rebuilt with alien invasion protocols in mind: underground bunkers, emergency evacuation routes, and civilian defense training programs. Children born after the '96 invasion grew up performing extraterrestrial drills alongside traditional fire and earthquake preparations. The human survival instinct had evolved. No longer were we simply preparing for natural disasters, but for threats from beyond our atmosphere. Major Dylan Hiller, son of the legendary pilot Stephen Hiller, often told his flight school cadets, "The sky isn't the limit anymore, it's the battlefield." What remained unspoken in official ESD communications was the terrifying knowledge that the invasion force they'd defeated was merely a scout party, the vanguard of something much larger. Intelligence gathered from the captured alien specimens suggested a vast intergalactic empire spanning multiple star systems, driven by a resource-hungry civilization that consumed planets like humans consumed meals. The ultimate sacrifice made by those who fought in the first invasion had bought humanity time, but the planetary core of Earth, rich in elements rare throughout the galaxy, remained an irresistible target. General Joshua Adams, commander of Earth's combined military forces, summarized it best during a closed-door security briefing. We didn't win the war in '96. We merely survived the first battle. As the 20th anniversary of Victory Day approached, an uneasy feeling settled over those privy to the ESD's highest security clearances. The captured alien queen, kept in stasis within Area 51's most secure sublevel, had begun showing increased neural activity after years of dormancy. The hive-mind connection, previously thought severed with the destruction of the mothership, appeared to be re-establishing itself across interstellar distances. Dr. Catherine Marceau, the leading xenobiologist studying the aliens, reported disturbing findings during her weekly briefing. They're receiving something, a signal, a call, perhaps instructions. Whatever disconnected them from their collective consciousness 20 years ago is reconnecting. Meanwhile, astronomers at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico detected unusual radiation patterns from the direction of Alpha Centauri, patterns that matched the energy signature of the alien mothership's propulsion system. Something was stirring in the void, and Earth's defenders watched the stars with renewed vigilance. Former President Thomas Whitmore jolted awake in his rural Virginia farmhouse, sweat-drenched sheets twisted around him like pythons. The same circular symbol burned behind his eyelids, a spiraling glyph that resembled a galaxy being consumed from its core. He'd been having these visions for months now, each more vivid than the last. His daughter Patricia had suggested therapy, worried that the psychic connection he'd experienced with the aliens 2 decades ago had left permanent neural damage. But Whitmore knew better. This wasn't PTSD or deteriorating mental health. The extraterrestrial threat was communicating again, the hive mind reaching across the void of space to touch his consciousness. He stumbled to his desk and drew the symbol for the 100th time, adding it to a wall already plastered with identical drawings. "They're coming back," he whispered to the empty room. "And this time, they're bringing something much worse." 238,000 miles away, Captain Jake Morrison wiped condensation from his spacesuit helmet as he and Lieutenant Charlie Miller struggled to calibrate the newly installed X-890 planetary shield generator on the lunar base. The advanced technology, reverse-engineered from the alien ship's energy shield systems, was humanity's latest defense advancement. "Careful with that gravitational calibrator," Jake warned, as Charlie adjusted the delicate components. "One wrong setting and this thing could accidentally create a wormhole instead of blocking one." The joke fell flat as alarms suddenly blared across their comms. The generator's core had entered an unexpected feedback loop, drawing power at exponential rates. "Shut it down," yelled Commander Jiang from Mission Control. Jake lunged for the emergency cutoff, his fingers missing the switch as the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. For 3 terrifying seconds, the entire eastern quadrant of Armstrong Base experienced gravitational destruction as tools, equipment, and personnel floated upward before crashing down again. When they finally managed to stabilize the system, Charlie whispered what everyone was thinking. "It's like the technology is fighting against us." At Area 51, the most secure military installation on Earth, Dr. Brakish Okun stood motionless before the containment chamber that had been his second home for 20 years. Inside, suspended in a specialized solution, the 3 alien specimens captured during the '96 invasion floated lifelessly, or so everyone had thought. For 2 decades, they'd remained in a comatose state, their biological functions barely registering on the facility's sophisticated monitoring equipment. But yesterday, at precisely 3:14 a.m., all 3 specimens had simultaneously exhibited rapid eye movement. "They're dreaming," Okun murmured to his assistant, Dr. Isaacs, "or receiving instructions." Today, their tentacle-like appendages had begun to twitch in synchronized patterns. The facility's advanced security protocols had automatically initiated, and the Pentagon was notified. General Adams had ordered a global state of heightened alert, though the public remained unaware. "It's like they're downloading a software update," Okun remarked with inappropriate fascination. "Whatever's coming is rebooting its ground troops first." Across the Atlantic, in the Congo Basin of Central Africa, Professor David Levinson ducked beneath the massive overgrowth that had reclaimed much of the alien scout ship, the only vessel to have actually landed intact during the first invasion. For years, the crashed ship had been a dead relic, studied exhaustively by international scientific teams, before being abandoned when it yielded no further insights. Now, inexplicably, its systems had reactivated. Lights pulsed along its alien. Circuitry and the strange symbols etched into its hull glowed with an eerie blue luminescence. David's environmental suit registered radiation levels within safe parameters, but his instincts screamed danger. "The ship is transmitting," he reported back to ESD headquarters, adjusting his scientific equipment to analyze the signal. "It's not just a distress beacon, it's a locator pulse, like a cosmic 'you are here' sign." He glanced at his research partner, Dr. Catherine Marceau, whose expression mirrored his own concern. Whatever wiped out their mothership 20 years ago, the survivors want their reinforcements to know exactly where Earth is. The scientific community found itself divided on what these phenomena meant. Some argued these were merely delayed technological responses, automated systems finally repairing themselves after decades of dormancy. Others, particularly those who'd faced the extraterrestrial threat directly during the first invasion, recognized the coordinated nature of these events. In Tokyo, quantum physicist Dr. Hakiru Yamane published a controversial paper suggesting the aliens operated on principles of quantum entanglement across interstellar distances. Their hive mind functioned regardless of physical separation. His theory explained how the captured specimens and abandoned technology could suddenly activate in unison despite being scattered across different continents. The scientific discovery sent shockwaves through the ESD's research division. If true, it meant their efforts to isolate and contain alien technology had been fundamentally misguided. Everything was still connected to the larger extraterrestrial network. ESD Director Patricia Whitmore stood before the United Nations Security Council, her composed exterior masking inner turmoil. "The evidence suggests coordinated alien activity for the first time in 20 years, she stated firmly. As holographic displays showed the simultaneous reactivation events across the globe. "Our spacecraft defenses are ready, the lunar base is at full alert, and planetary shield generators are being deployed at key strategic locations." What she didn't mention was her father's deteriorating condition. His room now covered floor to ceiling with the mysterious circular symbol. The same symbol that had appeared, burned into the soil, near the reactivated ship in Africa. The same symbol now pulsing at the molecular level within the captured alien's cellular structure, visible only under the most powerful microscopes. "We believe we're witnessing the preliminary stages of a second, potentially larger invasion attempt," she concluded. China's representative leaned forward. "Then perhaps it's time to implement the Harvester Protocol." The room fell silent. The Protocol, a last resort military strategy developed for extinction-level threats, had never moved beyond theoretical discussion. As global unity strengthened in the face of the growing extraterrestrial threat, independent reports of unusual phenomena multiplied across the planet. Astronomers reported gravitational anomalies at the edge of our solar system. Military pilots described instrument malfunctions when flying over certain coordinates. Civilians in rural areas across multiple continents claimed to witness strange lights and temporary localized loss of electrical power. Dylan Hiller, now commanding his own elite fighter squadron, reviewed footage from his pilot's latest training exercise near the Arctic Circle. The advanced technology in their new hybrid fighter jets, machines built with a combination of human innovation and reverse-engineered alien tech, had captured something the human eye couldn't perceive, a ripple in the atmosphere, like heat distortion, but in a perfect geometric pattern. "It's as if they're testing our perimeter," he told his executive officer, "probing for weaknesses before the main assault." That night, Dylan dreamed of his father, the legendary pilot who'd sacrificed himself during the First War. In the dream, Stephen Hiller pointed toward the moon and spoke a single word that Dylan couldn't hear but somehow understood. Soon. Dr. Brakish Okun hadn't left Area 51's xenobiology lab in 72 hours. The 3 alien specimens, nicknamed Alpha, Beta, and Gamma for simplicity's sake, had progressed from simple twitching to complex, synchronized movements. "They're waking up," he announced to the assembled military and scientific personnel, his disheveled appearance contrasting sharply with their pressed uniforms. After 20 years of dormancy, the hive-mind connection is re-establishing itself. General Adams stepped closer to the reinforced containment glass, his weathered face reflecting in the surface. "Can they communicate with the rest?" he asked, the implication clear in his tone. Okun nodded enthusiastically, too caught up in the scientific breakthrough to fully grasp the terrifying implications. The alien queen must have evolved, adapted. Their collective consciousness is no longer dependent on proximity to the mothership. Lieutenant Milton from Military Intelligence adjusted her glasses nervously. "So, they're basically walking, talking intergalactic Wi-Fi routers now?" The room fell silent as one of the aliens, Beta, suddenly pressed a claw-like appendage against the glass, directly opposite General Adams' face, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the human's image back in fractured patterns. Across the continent, in the sweltering heat of the Congolese jungle, David Levinson stood in the shadow of the reactivated alien scout ship, its hull now pulsing with blue-green bioluminescence. The local military escort, commanded by Colonel Mbaka, maintained a defensive perimeter, while David's team worked feverishly to decode the transmission the ship was broadcasting. "It's not just a simple distress signal," Levinson muttered, wiping sweat from his brow as his decryption algorithms ran through another cycle. "It's data. Massive amounts of data." Dr. Catherine Marceau looked up from her own equipment, concern etched on her features. "About what?" Levinson's expression grew grim as the first translated fragments appeared on his screen. "About us. Our defenses, our weapons, our scientific advancements. It's been silently gathering intelligence for 2 decades. Colonel Mbaka stepped forward, his hand resting on his sidearm. "So this thing has been spying on Earth's defense systems all this time? Even while appearing dormant?" David nodded grimly. "And now it's sending everything it knows back to the hive. The extraterrestrial threat never left. It just went underground." A war chief Umbutu arrived at the crash site as the sun began to set, his tribal markings standing in stark contrast to the advanced technology surrounding the alien vessel. Unlike the other officials and scientists, Umbutu approached the ship without fear, placing his hand directly on its vibrating surface. "My people have lived alongside this fallen star since it crashed," he explained to the astonished researchers. "We have observed. We have listened." He guided Levinson to a section of the ship they hadn't yet examined, a portion buried beneath 20 years of jungle growth. As they cleared away the vegetation, a horrifying discovery came to light. A massive drilling apparatus extended from the ship's underside, penetrating deep into the earth. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed what Umbutu already knew. The drill had burrowed nearly 30 miles toward Earth's core before the mothership's destruction had halted its progress. "They were not just invading our surface," Umbutu stated matter-of-factly. "They were attempting to extract the very heart of our world." Back at the lunar base, Jake Morrison and Charlie Miller had finally stabilized the planetary defense system when their sensors detected unusual activity on the far side of the moon. "Command, we're picking up seismic disturbances in the Daedalus crater," Jake reported, adjusting the scanner resolution to get a clearer reading. The response from ESD headquarters came after an unusually long delay. "Morrison, this is Director Whitmore. Approach with extreme caution and maintain radio silence once you're within visual range." The 2 pilots exchanged concerned glances before boarding their advanced technology rover. As they crested the rim of the massive crater, they killed the vehicle's lights and proceeded on minimal power. What they saw below froze their blood. The surface of the crater was moving, shifting, as if something massive was attempting to emerge from beneath the lunar regolith. "Holy shit," Charlie whispered, his voice barely audible. "They've been under us this whole time." Jake's hands trembled as he activated the rover's camera, documenting what appeared to be an alien structure that had been buried beneath the moon's surface for who knows how long, possibly predating humanity's evolution on Earth. The global reactivation of alien technology created a wave of panic among those who understood its significance. At the United Nations emergency session, Patricia Whitmore authorized the release of classified files detailing what ESD scientists had learned about the aliens' true objective. They're not colonists or conquerors in the traditional sense, she explained as holographic models illustrated the concept. They're more like interstellar locusts. They move from planet to planet, harvesting core materials for their civilization, leaving dead worlds in their wake. The Chinese representative leaned forward. So the attack 20 years ago. Patricia nodded grimly.
Was just the first phase. Clear out the indigenous population, establish a foothold, and begin the extraction process. When we destroyed their mothership, we interrupted their standard procedure. The Russian delegate's face paled. And now they're resuming where they left off.
Patricia's gaze swept across the assembly. With one crucial difference. This time, they know exactly what they're up against. The human survival rate during this second invasion attempt will be significantly lower if we don't prepare accordingly. Dr. Catherine Marceau had spent more time studying the aliens' psychology than anyone else on Earth. As she reviewed the latest data from the reactivated specimens at Area 51, a disturbing pattern emerged. They're not just waking up, she informed the Emergency Scientific Council via secure video link. They're evolving, adapting to our containment measures. The neural patterns suggest they've been conscious far longer than we realized, merely feigning dormancy while studying us. General Adams's holographic image flickered with interference, unusual for their advanced communication systems. Are you suggesting they've been playing possum for 20 years? Catherine nodded grimly. And worse, I believe they've been subtly influencing the scientists, studying them through limited telepathic suggestion. Notice how Dr. Oken's research consistently avoided certain areas of investigation, precisely the areas that might have revealed their active state. The scientific discovery sent shockwaves through the ESD leadership. If the aliens could manipulate human perception from within containment, what other aspects of Earth's defense had been compromised by their subtle influence? As reports flooded in from around the globe, a pattern emerged that couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. At precisely the same moment that the Area 51 specimens had awakened, the African ship had activated its transmission, the lunar anomaly had begun moving, and former President Whitmore had suffered his most violent seizure yet, streaming blood from his nose as he repeatedly screamed about the circle of death. Dylan Hiller stood in the ESD's Global Monitoring Center, watching as red alert indicators bloomed across the holographic world map. It's coordinated, he concluded, turning to Director Levinson, who had just returned from Africa. The hive mind is orchestrating all of this simultaneously. David nodded grimly, his expression haunted by what he'd discovered beneath the African ship. They're preparing for her arrival. Dylan's brow furrowed. Her? David's voice dropped to nearly a whisper, though in the silence of the monitoring center, everyone heard him clearly. The alien queen. The true hive mind. The mothership we destroyed was just a vessel. The real extraterrestrial threat, the controlling intelligence, is still out there. And if I'm interpreting their transmissions correctly, she's already on her way. War Chief. Umbutu led the international research team deeper into the jungle, where his tribe had maintained a vigilant watch over the alien craft for 2 decades. My people did not trust the silence of the fallen star, he explained, as they hiked through the dense undergrowth. While your government celebrated victory, we observed. We listened. David Levinson wiped sweat from his brow, his scientific curiosity warring with growing dread. The path suddenly opened into a clearing where dozens of tribal members stood, in a ceremonial circle around what appeared to be a perfect geometric depression in the earth. 3 years after your victory, Umbutu continued, his voice taking on a rhythmic, storytelling cadence, the ground began to move. Not quickly, not violently, but with purpose, like the patient digging of an insect. He gestured toward the depression, which David now realized was nearly 100 feet across. We lost 7 warriors before understanding that the ship was not dead, merely wounded. It had deployed machines beneath the soil that continued their work even as the vessel appeared dormant on the surface. Dr. Catherine Marceau knelt at the edge of the massive hole, her instruments registering residual energy readings. It was still trying to complete its mission, she whispered, even without direction from the mothership. The data recovered from Ubuntu's site correlated disturbingly well with findings from similar excavations discovered near other crash sites worldwide. Patricia Whitmore stood before the ESD Council, presenting holographic models of the drilling patterns. "They're geometrically precise," she explained, highlighting points on the global projection where fallen alien spacecraft had created identical boreholes. "When we map them collectively, they form a perfect dodecahedron pattern around Earth's planetary core." General Adams leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the hologram's blue glow. "So they weren't just attacking population centers during the first invasion?" Patricia nodded grimly. "The initial assault was merely to eliminate resistance. Their actual target was always deeper." She manipulated the display to show simulated drilling paths converging at Earth's center. "According to our geological models, if all drilling sites had reached their intended depth, they would have created a synchronized gravitational disruption capable of extracting our planet's core in its entirety." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Oken, attending via secure video link from Area 51, broke the silence with characteristic lack of social awareness. "Fascinating approach. They weren't invading Earth, they were harvesting it." Dylan Hiller piloted the experimental X-57 spacecraft, a hybrid of human and reverse-engineered alien technology, toward the coordinates Ubuntu had identified as the deepest point of alien drilling. The craft's advanced sensors penetrated the layers of Earth, mapping the tunnel that extended nearly 40 miles beneath the African surface. "I'm sending you the scan data now," he reported to ESD headquarters. "The borehole narrows the deeper. It goes, but it's lined with some kind of crystalline material we haven't seen before." David Levinson's voice crackled over the comms. "That's because it's not just a drill hole, Captain. If I'm reading these energy signatures correctly, they were constructing a transit system." Dylan's brow furrowed as he maneuvered the craft for another pass. "A transit system? For what?" There was a momentary pause before David responded, his voice grave. "For moving the extracted core material efficiently to their ships. Think of it as a cosmic mining operation. They dig the shaft, line it with superconducting material, and then use gravitational manipulation to pull the core right out through the tunnel network. The science is actually quite elegant, despite its horrifying purpose." The extraterrestrial threat had never been about conquering humanity. Humans were merely an inconvenient indigenous species to be cleared before resource extraction could begin. The scientific discovery of the aliens' true objective changed everything about Earth's defense strategy. Previous plans had focused on protecting population centers and military installations. Now they needed to defend the planet itself. At the lunar base, Jake Morrison oversaw the recalibration of the planetary defense shield. "We've been pointing our guns in the wrong direction," he explained to the assembled technicians. "They don't want our cities, our water, or even our people. They want what's under our feet." The new defense grid would concentrate its energy on creating a protective field around the identified drilling sites and reinforcing Earth's magnetic field, the last natural barrier between the aliens and the planetary core. Charlie Miller, reviewing the energy requirements for such a massive shield, shook his head in disbelief. "Even with all the advancements in our technology, we don't have enough power to maintain this kind of protection indefinitely." Jake's expression remained determined as he finalized the calibrations. "We don't need indefinite. We just need enough time to hit them harder than they hit us." At Area 51, the 3 alien specimens had begun creating a strange crystalline structure within their containment chamber, secreting a substance from their exoskeletons that hardened into geometric patterns identical to those found lining the drill shafts. Dr. Oken watched in fascinated horror as the structure grew more complex by the hour. "They're building a miniature version of their extraction technology," he reported to the Emergency Scientific Council. "It's like they're demonstrating their method right in front of us." The implications were chilling. Not only were the aliens awake and active, but they were deliberately showing humans exactly how the planetary core extraction would work. A display of such supreme confidence that resistance seemed futile. Military strategy experts debated whether to terminate the specimens immediately, but the scientific value of observing their behavior outweighed the minimal threat they posed while contained. That calculation changed dramatically when the crystal structure began emitting a low-frequency pulse that matched exactly the energy signature detected at the African drill site. Somehow, despite their isolation, the specimens had created a functioning component of the larger extraction system. President Lanford addressed the United Nations General Assembly in an unprecedented session where all world leaders attended either in person or via secure holographic projection. "The threat we face is no longer to our nations, our peoples, or even our species," she declared, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "It is to our planet itself." Behind her, screens displayed classified footage from the drilling, sites and the crystalline structures growing within them. 20 years ago, we celebrated a victory that was, at best, incomplete. We killed their soldiers, but failed to understand their war. The assembly hall remained deadly silent as she continued. Today, we know the truth. Earth's molten core contains elements essential for their advanced technology, necessary for their survival and expansion across the galaxy. We are not facing conquerors or colonizers. We are facing consumers, and our planet is on their menu. Her words triggered murmurs throughout the assembly. The representative from Japan stood. "If they successfully extract our core," President Lanford nodded grimly, "global ecosystems collapse immediately. The magnetic field disappears, cosmic radiation sterilizes the surface, and eventually Earth becomes just another dead rock floating in space. Total human extinction within weeks." Former President Whitmore had been moved to a secure medical facility beneath Mount Weather after his condition deteriorated further. The circular symbol he'd been drawing compulsively now manifested physically around him. Books arranged in the pattern on the floor. Furniture moved into the configuration during moments when his caretakers stepped away. Patricia visited her, Father Daly, watching with growing concern as the once powerful leader of the free world mumbled about her arrival and the circle of harvest. Today was different, however. For the first time in weeks, Thomas Whitmore was lucid, sitting upright, in his bed when Patricia entered. "They showed me everything," he said without preamble, his eyes clear and focused. "During the neural connection 20 years ago, I saw their entire civilization, their history, their methods. I just couldn't process it until now." He grabbed Patricia's hand with surprising strength. "They've done this thousands of times, to thousands of worlds. They locate planets with the right core composition, they send advanced ships to eliminate resistance, they harvest the core, and they move on. They're not evil, Patty, not in the human sense. They're hungry." Patricia squeezed her father's hand. "What triggered the reactivation after 20 years? Why now?" Thomas Whitmore's expression darkened. "Because she's coming. The Queen, the living hive mind. And she's bringing a wormhole with her. A direct path from their dying world to ours." The anomaly appeared without warning. A ripple in the fabric of space approximately 238,000 miles from Earth, exactly at the midpoint between our planet and its lunar satellite. The ESD's Deep Space Monitoring System detected it first. An infinitesimal disruption in background radiation that quickly expanded into a swirling vortex of energy. "It's a wormhole," David Levinson announced to the emergency response team, his voice betraying both scientific fascination and primal fear. The assembled military and scientific leaders watched in tense silence as the spatial distortion grew, its edges shimmering with electromagnetic radiation that scrambled their most advanced sensors. General Adams leaned forward, hands gripping the edge of the monitoring console. "Is this it? The invasion?" David's eyes remained fixed on the data streams flooding his terminal. Too small for a mothership. "The energy signature is different too, not exactly matching what we recorded during the '96 event." Before anyone could respond, the wormhole pulsed once, twice, and then disgorged a single object before collapsing in on itself. On the main view screen, a perfectly spherical spacecraft approximately 200 meters in diameter drifted silently in the void, its glossy surface reflecting starlight like a massive obsidian marble floating in the cosmic sea. "It's not one of theirs," Dr. Catherine Marceau declared after analyzing the preliminary scans of the mysterious sphere. The object had made no aggressive movements since its arrival through the wormhole 6 hours earlier, simply maintaining its position in space as Earth's military assets scrambled to defensive positions. The design aesthetic is completely different. The ships from the 96 invasion were all angular, biomechanical. This is... She gestured to the perfect smoothness of the sphere on the display. Elegant. David Levinson nodded in agreement, his mind racing through possibilities. The energy readings are distinct as well. The extraterrestrial threat we know uses a destructive harvesting approach to technology. This craft appears to be powered by something that's actually creating energy rather than consuming it. President Lanford, who had been silently observing the analysis, finally spoke. Are you suggesting we're dealing with a different alien species altogether? David and Catherine exchanged glances before David carefully responded. Madam President, I believe this could be our first contact with an entirely separate civilization, one that might have its own history with our previous invaders. The sphere remained in position for 23 hours, passive and seemingly dormant, despite Earth's increasingly aggressive scanning attempts. Military spacecraft maintained a defensive perimeter at a safe distance, their weapon systems locked on the unidentified vessel. Inside the White House Situation Room, debate raged over the appropriate response. We should attempt communication, David argued passionately. If this is indeed a different species, they could provide advanced technology or strategic information about our enemy. General Adams shook his head firmly. Or they could be an advanced scout for something worse. Remember, we thought the first ships were non-threatening until they positioned themselves over our major cities. Patricia Whitmore, representing her father, who had requested to be present but was deemed too unstable, offered a middle ground. What about a controlled approach? One vessel, minimal crew, heavily armed but with clear communication equipment. President Lanford listened to all sides before arriving at her decision. A decision that would later be scrutinized by historians as either the most prudent or most catastrophic of her administration. We can't risk another hostile species gaining a foothold while we're preparing for the return of the first. Director Levinson, you have 12 hours to gather any data you can remotely. After that, we're destroying it. Captain Dylan Hiller led the squadron assigned to neutralize the sphere, piloting the lead fighter himself despite objections from ESD Command. My father flew the first mission against them in '96, he had argued. This is personal. His advanced X-57 spacecraft, integrated with reverse-engineered alien technology, carried the most powerful weapon system ever developed by human hands. As the fighters approached their target, Dylan opened a channel to his squadron. Remember, we hit it simultaneously from all vectors. No energy shield can protect against that kind of distributed attack. The pilots acknowledged, maneuvering into position around the silent sphere. Just as Dylan was about to give the fire command, his instrument panel flickered, then displayed an unexpected message in perfect English. We are not your enemy. We bring warning. Dylan's finger froze over the trigger. Command, are you seeing this? He asked, voice tight with tension. After a brief silence, David Levinson's voice came through the comms. Stand by, Captain. Do not fire. Repeat. Hold your fire. The sphere, dormant for over a day, had finally made contact. Not through conventional communication channels, but directly through their own systems, bypassing all security protocols as if they didn't exist. The communication from the sphere triggered an immediate reassessment at the highest levels. President Lanford authorized a direct response. Identify yourself and state your purpose. The answer came instantly, appearing simultaneously on every digital screen within the ESD network. We are survivors. Like you will be. Accompanying the cryptic message was a massive data packet that overwhelmed Earth's most sophisticated systems, forcing emergency shutdowns across the global defense grid. When the systems rebooted 6 minutes later, they contained new information, detailed schematics of the alien motherships, their vulnerabilities, their methods of attacking planets, and most disturbingly, records of thousands of worlds they had already harvested. David Levinson worked feverishly to process the flood of data, his expression growing increasingly grim. They're showing us the destruction of their homeworld, he explained to the assembled leaders as holographic images displayed a beautiful, blue-green planet, not unlike Earth being systematically dismantled. According to this, they were the 7th civilization to fall to the same harvesters that attacked us. But unlike the others, some of them escaped, developed new technology, and have been tracking the harvesters across the galaxy ever since. Despite the compelling evidence provided by the sphere, President Lanford remained skeptical. This could be an elaborate deception, she argued during the Emergency Security Council. For all we know, this is just a different faction of the same hostile species, attempting to gain our trust before the main force arrives. The military advisors nodded in agreement, but David Levinson stood his ground. The technical data they've provided about the Harvester's ships matches exactly what we discovered ourselves through 20 years of research. They know things about our enemy that we've only just begun to understand. He projected a holographic comparison between the drilling technology discovered in Africa and the schematics provided by the sphere. Their information could be the scientific discovery that saves our planet. As the debate continued, Charlie, Miller from the lunar base, interrupted with an urgent transmission. The long-range arrays are picking up something big coming in fast from the direction of Alpha Centauri. And I mean really big. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Patricia Whitmore was the first to speak. If that's the alien queen's ship, we have hours, not days, to prepare. President Lanford made her final decision. Destroy the sphere. We can't risk it being a Trojan horse while we're facing a confirmed threat. The destruction of the sphere was meant to be a precision operation, a single concentrated strike from Earth's most advanced weapons platform. What no one anticipated was the sphere's response. As the energy beam lanced toward it from the lunar defense station, the black surface of the alien vessel rippled like disturbed water. In the instant before impact, a blinding flash of light erupted from the sphere. And then, nothing. The beam passed through empty space, the target having apparently vanished. Did we destroy it? President Lanford demanded. The tracking specialists shook their heads in confusion. No debris field, no energy discharge consistent with destruction. It's just gone. Seconds later, sensors detected the sphere reappearing 10,000 miles away, well outside the range of immediate follow-up attacks. A final message transmitted across all ESD channels. We will return when you are ready to listen. Survive, if you can. Then, the mysterious vessel accelerated to impossible speed, vanishing into the depths of space, just as Earth's long-range scanners confirmed the approach of something so massive that initial measurements had to be recalculated. A spacecraft 25 times larger than the mothership from the first invasion, on direct course for Earth. Thomas Whitmore watched the holographic display of the retreating sphere, with a clarity of mind he hadn't experienced in weeks. You sent away our only ally, he told Patricia when she visited him after the failed destruction attempt. His room, in the Mount Weather bunker, was now completely covered in the circular symbol, drawn on walls, scratched into furniture, even painted onto the ceiling above his bed. Dad, we couldn't trust them. Not with everything else that's happening. Thomas shook his head sadly. The circle isn't what I thought it was. It's not a threat. It's their symbol for unity, for alliance against a common enemy. He tapped his temple. I can see it clearly now. The hive mind has been trying to block these memories, trying to make me fear the wrong thing. He grabbed Patricia's hands with unexpected strength. The sphere people fought them before, on 1,000 worlds. Sometimes they won, sometimes they lost. But they've been gathering intelligence, building a coalition of survivors, and we just turned them away. Outside the reinforced walls of the underground facility, the sky began to darken prematurely as the vast shadow of the approaching alien mothership entered Earth's atmosphere, its gravitational field already disrupting weather patterns across the globe. The real enemy had arrived, and humanity would face it alone. It appeared first as an impossibly large shadow darkening the sky over the Pacific Ocean. ESD satellites captured the moment the alien mothership emerged from what scientists later determined was an artificially generated wormhole, a tear in the fabric of space-time that allowed near-instantaneous travel across interstellar distances. "Dear God," General Adams whispered, as the holographic display in the war room rendered the approaching vessel to scale. The mothership from the '96 invasion, which had measured 15 miles in diameter and devastated Earth's major cities, now appeared as a mere speck beside this new Leviathan. Initial measurements suggested a craft that stretched over 300 miles from end to end with a mass that defied conventional physics. "It should collapse under its own weight," Dr. Okun muttered, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and scientific fascination. The advanced technology required to maintain structural integrity at that size. His voice trailed off as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a larger version of what they'd faced before. This was an entirely different class of threat, representing a level of extraterrestrial civilization far beyond what they had prepared for. The mothership didn't position itself over major cities as its predecessor had. Instead, it hovered in the mid-Pacific, maintaining an altitude of approximately 100 miles as smaller craft, each still larger than anything in Earth's defense. Fleet, deployed in a precise geometric pattern around the planet. "They're mapping the drilling sites," David Levinson observed grimly, as ESD tracking systems followed the deployment, coordinating with the ground forces that have been waiting for 2 decades. President Lanford ordered an immediate first strike, authorizing the use of Earth's most powerful weapons against the alien vessels. Hybrid fighters launched from carriers worldwide, armed with missiles containing technology reverse-engineered from the previous invasion. The planetary defense shield, operated from the lunar base, powered up to maximum capacity, creating a protective energy field around Earth's most populous regions. For exactly 8 minutes and 42 seconds, humanity's defenders believed they might stand a chance. Then, without warning or apparent effort, the mothership extended its gravitational field downward. The gravitational destruction began in the waters directly beneath the mothership. The Pacific Ocean bulged upward, forming a mountain of water that rose impossibly high, defying Earth's natural gravitational pull. Then the alien vessel adjusted its field, and disaster struck. Cities along the Pacific Rim, Tokyo, Sydney, Los Angeles, San Francisco, experienced gravitational reversal. Buildings, vehicles, and people were suddenly weightless, floating upward with increasing speed as if Earth itself had relinquished its hold on them. "They've weaponized gravity itself," Charlie reported from the lunar base, his voice tight with horror as he watched the catastrophe unfold on Earth below. The effect lasted only minutes, but the damage was cataclysmic. As suddenly as the gravitational field had reversed, it returned to normal, multiplied. Everything that had risen now crashed down with forces many times Earth's natural gravity. Entire city blocks were flattened, skyscrapers folded in on themselves, and millions of lives were extinguished in a devastating demonstration of the aliens' power. The message was brutally clear. Earth's defenses were irrelevant. The extraterrestrial threat hadn't come to fight, it had come to harvest. Patricia Whitmore stood in the rubble of what had once been ESD headquarters in Washington, D.C., coordinating evacuation efforts as the alien ships positioned themselves over the previously identified drilling sites. The mothership's gravitational attack had been precisely targeted, devastating military installations and defense infrastructure while largely sparing the drilling locations and their surroundings. "They're more surgical this time," she observed to David Levinson as they worked to establish a makeshift command center in the ruins. "Last time they wanted to eliminate our population centers. This time, they're specifically neutralizing our ability to resist while preserving the areas they need for resource extraction." David nodded grimly, his eyes fixed on a tablet displaying real-time satellite imagery of the alien vessels deploying what appeared to be massive drilling apparatus at each site. "They've refined their approach based on what they learned 20 years ago. This isn't an invasion anymore. It's an industrial operation, and we're just an indigenous pest problem they're managing more efficiently." The scientific discovery that truly revealed the nature of their enemy came from an unexpected source. Dr. Catherine Marceau, working with the data provided by the sphere before its departure, had identified a unique energy signature associated with the alien command structure. "It's not just a hive mind in the abstract sense," she explained. "To the Emergency War Council, which now operated from a mobile command center, constantly changing position to avoid alien detection. There's an actual central intelligence, a queen, for lack of a better term, that controls every aspect of their civilization through quantum entanglement. Her analysis, combined with readings from the approaching mothership, led to a chilling conclusion. The ship itself isn't the threat. It's a vehicle, a massive living vessel controlled entirely by a single consciousness. She projected a three-dimensional model showing energy concentrations within the mothership. And based on these readings, she's approximately 15 miles long herself, a single organism of incomprehensible size and complexity. General Adams studied the projection, his expression grim. So cutting off the head would actually work in this case. Catherine nodded cautiously. In theory, yes. Kill the Queen, disrupt the hive mind, and the entire alien force should be neutralized, if we could reach her. As humanity struggled to mount any kind of meaningful defense, the aliens began the next phase of their operation. From each of the smaller ships positioned over drilling sites, enormous mechanical appendages descended, burrowing into the ground with terrifying efficiency. Seismic sensors worldwide registered the impacts as the drills penetrated deeper and faster than anything humans had ever developed. In Africa, War Chief Umbutu led his people away from their ancestral lands as the ground beneath them literally began to crumble. "They will reach the core within hours, not days," he told David Levinson via satellite communication. "The harvest has begun." From his vantage point on the lunar base, Jake Morrison watched in horror as the effects became visible, even from space, subtle but unmistakable distortions in Earth's magnetic field as the alien technology disrupted the natural flow of energy within the planetary core. Earth's defense forces launched desperate attacks against the drilling ships, throwing everything they had left at the massive alien vessels. For every small victory, a damaged appendage here, a temporarily halted drill there, 10 more sites continued their inexorable progress toward Earth's core. President Lanford addressed what remained of Earth's population from a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Fellow citizens of Earth," she began, her voice steady despite the desperation of their situation. 20 years ago, we faced an enemy that sought to destroy us, and against all odds we prevailed. Today we face that enemy again, stronger, more determined, and with a clearer purpose. Behind her, screens displayed real-time footage of evacuation efforts, alongside tactical displays of the ongoing alien operation. I will not offer false hope. The extraterrestrial threat we face has technology and capabilities far beyond our own. Their attack has already claimed millions of lives. She paused, gathering strength for what came next. But I will also not surrender. As long as one human being draws breath on this planet, we will fight for our home. The broadcast continued, with practical instructions for those in immediate danger zones, evacuation routes, and emergency protocols. What President Lanford didn't reveal was the contingency plan already in motion, Operation Exodus, a last resort effort to preserve at least some fraction of humanity off-world at the lunar and Mars bases, should Earth itself be lost. As military, strategy dictated focus on buying time rather than achieving victory. The first evacuation ships were already being loaded with civilians selected by lottery, scientists, artists, children, representatives of the best humanity had to offer, who might carry our legacy to the stars if the unthinkable happened. Deep within the colossal mothership, protected by layers of advanced technology and thousands of warrior drones, she waited. The alien queen hadn't survived millennia of intergalactic conquest by being impatient. Through the vast neural network of the hive mind, she monitored every aspect of the harvesting operation unfolding on the blue planet below. Unlike her lesser minions, the queen possessed not just intelligence but wisdom, an accumulated knowledge base spanning hundreds of civilizations they had encountered and consumed. Earth had surprised her brood once before, 20 years ago, by local measurement. A primitive species had somehow managed to disrupt their standard protocols, destroying a perfectly good harvester ship and nearly an entire invasion force. Intriguing. Most species simply died, their final moments spent in pointless panicked flight. But humans had coordinated, adapted, and fought back effectively enough to merit her personal attention. The Queen shifted her massive form within the central chamber of the mothership, her consciousness simultaneously present in every drone, currently drilling toward Earth's planetary core. The unusual resistance of this world's indigenous species was an inconvenience, but ultimately irrelevant. The extraction would proceed. The hive must feed. "We've detected unusual energy fluctuations within the mothership," Dr. Okun reported, his fingers dancing across holographic controls as he analyzed the latest sensor data. The makeshift war room, hastily established in an underground facility, originally designed as a Cold War bunker, fell silent as he projected his findings. There's a central chamber approximately 20 miles in from the outer hull, heavily shielded, but our instruments are picking up complex neural activity unlike anything we've recorded from individual aliens. David Levinson studied the readings with growing excitement. "It matches the patterns the sphere showed us, the Queen's unique neural signature." General Adams leaned forward, immediately grasping the strategic implications. "So we've located their command center. Can we hit it?" David and Dr. Okun exchanged glances. "The mothership's energy shield is impenetrable to our weapons," David explained. "Even if we could breach the hull, we'd need to navigate 20 miles of heavily defended interior space to reach her." Patricia Whitmore, who had been silently processing the information, suddenly spoke up. "We don't need to breach from outside. We already have a way in." All eyes turned to her questioningly. "The drilling ships connect directly to the mothership through quantum entanglement. If we could capture one..." The room erupted in fierce debate about the feasibility of her suggestion, but Patricia's expression remained determined. "My father connected to their hive mind once before. He understands how they think, how they operate. We need to talk to him." The captured alien specimens at Area 51 had grown increasingly agitated as the invasion progressed. Their synchronized movements had evolved into what appeared to be a ritualistic dance within their containment chamber, their biomechanical bodies contorting into configurations that human physiology couldn't achieve. Dr. Marceau observed them through reinforced glass, recording every movement for analysis. "They're celebrating," she realized with a chill. "This is some kind of victory ritual." As if responding to her words, all three specimens suddenly froze, their multifaceted eyes swiveling in perfect unison to stare directly at her. Then, to the horror of everyone present, they began to change. Their exoskeletons rippled and flowed like liquid metal, reconfiguring into more complex forms. "They're molting," gasped a junior researcher, backing away from the glass. Dr. Marceau shook her head grimly. "Not molting, evolving, adapting." The transformation completed within minutes, revealing creatures far more formidable than what had been contained, larger, with enhanced appendages clearly designed for combat. "The Queen is upgrading her troops," Dr. Marceau whispered, backing away as hairline fractures began to appear in the supposedly impenetrable containment glass. The facility's alarms blared as the specimens launched themselves against their prison, each impact widening the cracks. "She knows we're planning something." The military strategy session to capture one of the drilling ships was well underway when Thomas Whitmore was escorted into the war room. Though physically frail, his eyes burned with an intensity that commanded attention. "The Queen knows I'm still alive," he announced without preamble. "She's been trying to silence me because I understand her. 20 years ago, when I connected to their network, the exchange went both ways. I've carried her thoughts inside me ever since." He approached the holographic display showing the mothership's structure. "Your plan to capture a drilling ship won't work. They're not separate entities. They're extensions of her will, like fingers on a hand." Before anyone could respond, Whitmore placed his palm against the hologram, dispersing the light particles, and reforming them into a different configuration, a detailed schematic of the alien queen herself. "She's not just their leader," he continued, his voice taking on an otherworldly quality. "She's their collective consciousness. Every decision, every action flows from her and returns to her. The drones aren't individuals. They're cells in a single organism. And like any organism, she has one overriding directive: survive and propagate." Analysis of the Queen's biology, pieced together from Whitmore's descriptions and the sphere's data, revealed a creature of terrifying complexity. "She's essentially a biological supercomputer," David explained to the assembled military leaders. Her neural structure allows her to process information from billions of drones simultaneously while orchestrating complex operations across multiple star systems. The holographic display showed a being that barely resembled the smaller aliens they'd encountered, a massive central body nearly a mile long, with dozens of specialized appendages and a brain case that dwarfed everything else. The Queen evolves constantly, adapting her own physiology based on the challenges she encounters. Each successful planetary harvest adds to her knowledge base and physical capabilities. General Adams studied the projection grimly. So she's learning from us even as we fight her. David nodded. Every defense we mount, every tactic we try, it all feeds her evolution. And based on what we're seeing in the captured specimens, she's already implementing changes to counter our resistance. Jake Morrison piloted his advanced technology fighter through the debris field that had once been Singapore, maintaining radio silence as ordered while conducting reconnaissance on the nearest drilling operation. What he witnessed sent ice through his veins. The massive drill had already penetrated miles into Earth's crust, and around it, smaller alien craft were deploying what appeared to be processing stations. They're not just drilling, he reported back to command after reaching a safe transmission distance. They're setting up infrastructure, refineries, transport systems. It's like watching a mining company establish operations, but at an impossible scale. The implications were clear. The aliens weren't planning a quick hit-and-run extraction. They were establishing a long-term presence to systematically strip Earth of its resources. Most disturbing of all was the evidence that they were adapting their equipment on the fly. The drilling apparatus has changed since yesterday, Jake noted. They've modified it to better handle our specific geological composition. They're learning and improving their harvest methods in real time. The true horror of the Alien Queen's plan became clear when the first drilling ship reached its target depth. Seismic sensors worldwide registered a catastrophic disruption as the alien technology made contact with Earth's outer core. Within hours, effects began manifesting globally. Magnetic field fluctuations disrupting electronic systems, unexpected, gravitational anomalies causing localized destruction, and a measurable slowing of the planet's rotation. Dr. Okun's analysis confirmed their worst fears. They're not just extracting material, he explained, his usual manic energy subdued by the gravity of his findings. They're destabilizing the entire core to make it easier to harvest. It's actually brilliant from an engineering perspective. Why dig out resources bit by bit when you can liquefy the entire planetary center and siphon it out? President Lanford stared at the projections showing the progressive collapse of Earth's geomagnetic field. How long? She asked simply. Dr. Okun swallowed hard. At the current rate, complete core extraction within 72 hours. Total planetary collapse. Perhaps a week after that. The room fell silent as the human survival timeline compressed from months to mere days. Thomas Whitmore sat alone in his quarters, eyes closed, deliberately opening his mind to the alien consciousness that had haunted him for 20 years. As the Queen's thoughts flowed into him, he saw her grand design with terrible clarity. Earth wasn't just another resource cache, it was a strategic acquisition in an eons-long campaign of cosmic consumption. The elements in Earth's core were necessary components for the Queen's next evolutionary leap, materials that would allow the hive to extend its reach to galaxies previously inaccessible. Humanity's resistance was barely a footnote in her consciousness, a minor irritant in a harvesting operation she had performed countless times before. Yet as Whitmore probed deeper into the alien Queen's mind, he discovered something unexpected, a flicker of concern about the sphere that had briefly appeared before the invasion. The Queen knew that vessel, feared it even. It represented a coalition of survivor species who had escaped her harvesting and now worked to oppose her. This was why she had accelerated Earth's timetable, not because of human resistance, but because she feared the sphere might return with reinforcements. Whitmore opened his eyes, a plan forming in his mind. If the aliens could be delayed even briefly, perhaps their mysterious potential ally could be contacted again. With trembling hands, he began writing equations and coordinates he couldn't possibly have known, but had extracted directly from the hive mind. The path to finding the sphere once more. Captain Dylan Hiller led the squadron of ESD hybrid fighters toward the mothership's gravity well, each pilot acutely aware that this might be humanity's last coordinated offensive. Their mission was as desperate as it was daring: penetrate the alien vessel's outer defenses, locate the Queen's chamber, and deploy the experimental quantum destabilizer, a weapon hastily developed using a combination of alien technology and principles gleaned from the sphere's data package. Remember, Dylan's voice crackled through the squadron's comm channel, we only get one shot at this. The destabilizer needs to be delivered directly to the Queen's neural center, or it won't work. Behind his calm exterior, Dylan's thoughts turned to his father, Stephen Hiller, the legendary pilot who had flown into the mothership during the first invasion. Like father, like son, he muttered to himself as the massive alien vessel loomed ahead, its surface bristling with defensive appendages. The squadron approached from Earth's dark side, using the planet's shadow to mask their approach. For a breathless moment, it seemed their stealth tactics had worked. No immediate response from the alien defenses. Then hell broke loose. Energy weapons lanced out from the mothership's surface, vaporizing 3 fighters instantly. "They knew we were coming!" Lieutenant Rodriguez shouted over the comms. "It's a trap!" Jake Morrison watched in horror from his position on the lunar base as the mothership's response to Dylan's squadron unfolded with devastating precision. "They're being slaughtered," he reported to ESD Command, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. On his tactical display, the squadron's carefully planned formation disintegrated under withering alien fire. Of the 24 advanced technology fighters that had launched, only 7 remained, and those were being herded like cattle into what appeared to be a massive opening in the mothership's hull. "They're not trying to destroy all of them," Patricia Whitmore realized, studying the tactical feed beside Jake. "They're capturing some. Why?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Thomas Whitmore, who had insisted on being present for the mission despite his frail condition, suddenly gripped the edge of the console, his eyes unfocused. "She wants to study our best pilots, our best machines, learn from them, adapt to them." His voice had taken on the strange, dual-toned quality it acquired when he connected to the hive mind. "She's impressed by human ingenuity. It's amusing to her." The room fell silent at the chilling implication. Their best effort wasn't just failing. It was actively helping the enemy evolve more effective countermeasures against Earth's defense. Inside the mothership, Dylan fought to maintain control of his fighter as alien gravitational technology pulled the surviving craft deeper into the vessel's labyrinthine interior. The squadron had trained for space warfare in every conceivable scenario, but nothing had prepared them for the disorienting reality of the alien ship's internal environment. Conventional directions, up, down, left, right, became meaningless in a space where gravity shifted constantly, where walls became floors and ceilings became abysses without warning. "Stay together," Dylan commanded as the 7 remaining fighters were dragged deeper into the biomechanical horror of the alien vessel. Lieutenant Rain Lau, piloting closest to Dylan's wing, managed to stabilize her craft enough to activate her sensors. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings ahead. Massive biosignatures, hundreds of them, but they're dormant somehow." Before Dylan could respond, the gravitational pull abruptly ceased, depositing the fighters in an immense chamber filled with thousands of suspended alien warriors, each encased in a translucent membrane. "It's an army," Rain whispered, the implication clear. These weren't troops meant for Earth, but for the next world after humanity's planet was consumed. The human survival timeline suddenly compressed even further. The aliens weren't just harvesting Earth's core. They were already preparing for their next conquest. While Dylan's squadron faced imminent capture within the mothership, President Lanford coordinated what might be humanity's final stand. With the alien drilling operations progressing, at 9 sites worldwide, Earth's remaining military assets deployed in desperate holding actions. In the Nevada desert, General Adams personally led a ground assault against the alien processing station established near one of the drill sites. His forces, a cobbled-together mixture of regular army, National Guard, and civilian volunteers, fought with the determination of those who knew they were likely to die but chose the time and manner of their end. Their military strategy wasn't complex. Hold the line, buy time, and inflict whatever damage they could against the extraterrestrial threat. Similar actions unfolded worldwide. In the Gobi Desert, the Amazon Basin, Central Africa, all sites where the massive drills penetrated ever deeper toward Earth's core. These weren't battles expected to be won. They were sacrificial delays, precious minutes and hours purchased with human lives while ESD scientists worked frantically on alternative approaches. David Levinson hadn't slept in 72 hours, his mind racing between inspiration and despair as he reviewed the data from both the sphere and Thomas Whitmore's connection to the hive mind. "There has to be something we're missing," he muttered, eyes bloodshot as he pored over energy signature analyses in the makeshift lab established beneath Mount Weather. Dr. Catherine Marceau worked beside him, correlating the neural patterns from the escaped Area 51 specimens with Whitmore's documented episodes. "The Queen's consciousness operates on quantum principles we barely understand," she said, rubbing her temples. "But there's a pattern here. Look." She pointed to corresponding spikes in neural activity across multiple datasets. "The Queen isn't just directing her forces. She's literally experiencing through them. Every drone, every warrior, is like a sensory appendage extending her awareness." David straightened suddenly, an idea forming. "So she feels what they feel. If one experiences pain..." Catherine nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "They all do. And most importantly, she does." David grabbed the secure communication link to the president. "I think I know how to hurt her. Really hurt her. But we need Dylan's team to deploy the weapon differently than planned." Inside the mothership, Dylan had made a critical discovery. One that might offer a slim chance of completing their mission, despite the trap. The captured squadron had been deposited in what appeared to be an analytical chamber, their fighters immobilized, but systems still partially functional. Through his craft's specialized sensors, designed to detect the unique energy signature of the alien queen, Dylan registered a massive concentration of neural activity several miles deeper within the ship. "She's close," he told his surviving pilots over their encrypted short-range comms. "Closer than we expected." Lieutenant Rain Lau, whose fighter retained more functionality than the others, ran additional scans. "Captain, there's a network of circulatory tunnels throughout the ship, carrying some kind of fluid. They all lead to the Queen's chamber." Dylan studied the schematic on his display, a desperate plan forming. "The destabilizer, if we can introduce it into that circulatory system instead of delivering it directly." Rain immediately understood. Like injecting poison into a bloodstream, it would reach her naturally. With renewed determination, the trapped pilots began reprogramming their weapons, preparing for what would likely be their final act in humanity's defense. Whatever happened, they would ensure their capture served Earth's cause rather than the alien queen's curiosity. At the Mount Weather bunker, Thomas Whitmore made his decision. For years, the alien consciousness had invaded his mind, tormented him with visions and foreign thoughts. Now he would use that connection as a weapon. "The Queen is distracted with the captured squadron," he explained to Patricia and President Lanford. "Her attention is focused on studying them, adapting to their technology. This creates a momentary vulnerability in the hive mind." His plan was audacious and likely suicidal. Using the experimental neural amplifier Dr. Okun had developed, Whitmore would fully open himself to the alien consciousness, establishing a two-way connection stronger than ever before. While the Queen was preoccupied, he would transmit a specific memory, the nuclear detonation that had destroyed one of the harvester ships in '96, with such intensity that it might momentarily stun the entire hive mind, creating a window of opportunity for Dylan's team. "It's a long shot," General Adams argued, "and it will almost certainly kill you." Whitmore smiled sadly. "I've been dying slowly for 20 years, General. Might as well make it count." As technicians prepared the neural amplifier, Whitmore took a moment alone with Patricia. "Your mother would be proud of you," he told her quietly. "And when this is over, don't waste time mourning me. There'll be a world to rebuild." The former President of the United States, once the most powerful man on Earth, now prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice, not with advanced technology or weapons of war, but with his mind itself. The neural amplifier hummed with increasing intensity as technicians made final adjustments to the apparatus encasing Thomas Whitmore's head. The former president sat calmly at the center of a circle of advanced technology, much of it reverse-engineered from alien components. "Neural sync at 87% and climbing," Dr. Oken announced, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Patricia Whitmore stood at the edge of the room trying to maintain her composure as her father prepared to sacrifice himself. "The Queen's attention is still focused on the captured squadron," Thomas reported, his voice already taking on that strange dual-tone quality as the hive-mind connection strengthened. "She's fascinated by them, studying their technology, their tactics." President Lanford, observing from a secure video feed, gave the final authorization. "Proceed with Operation Flashburn." Thomas Whitmore closed his eyes, his breathing becoming rhythmic and deep as the neural amplifier reached full power. In an instant, his consciousness expanded beyond the confines of his physical form, catapulting across the quantum connection, directly into the alien queen's mind. For a brief, transcendent moment, he experienced existence as she did. Vast, complex, spanning multiple dimensions of awareness. Then, with every ounce of his willpower, he focused on a single memory. The blinding flash of nuclear detonation, the concussive force, the destructive heat that had obliterated one of their ships 20 years ago. He projected not just the visual recollection, but the emotional impact, the triumph of human survival against extraterrestrial threat. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Throughout the hive mind, drones faltered, warriors stumbled, systems momentarily stuttered. And deep within the mothership, the Queen herself recoiled in psychic agony. Dylan Hiller felt the change instantly. The alien forces restraining their fighters suddenly loosened, the biomechanical components of the mothership around them spasming as if in pain. "Now!" he commanded his squadron. In perfect synchronization, the 7 pilots activated their reprogrammed destabilizer weapons, targeting not the distant Queen but the circulatory channels Rain had identified. The experimental devices, designed to disrupt the unique quantum field that sustained the hive-mind connection, launched into the viscous fluid flowing through the mothership's internal systems. "Payload delivered," Lieutenant Lau confirmed, as the readings on her instrument panel indicated successful deployment. For an agonizing moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the entire chamber shuddered violently. Warning alerts flashed across Dylan's control panel as his sensors detected massive energy fluctuations throughout the alien vessel. "The destabilizer is propagating through their system," he reported to anyone who might still be receiving transmissions from within the mothership. But something's wrong. The readings are different than expected. Instead of disrupting the Queen's neural network as designed, the quantum destabilizer appeared to be strengthening it, focusing the hive mind into a more powerful configuration. "She's adapting," Rain realized with horror. "She's using our weapon to enhance her connection to the drones." Through the viewport of his fighter, Dylan watched as the dormant alien warriors surrounding them began to stir within their membranous cocoons, the Queen redirecting her consciousness through them with unprecedented efficiency. At Mount Weather, Thomas Whitmore convulsed violently, blood streaming from his nose and ears as the neural backlash overwhelmed his human physiology. "She's countering," he gasped between spasms, "turning our attack back on us." Medical staff rushed to stabilize him, but Whitmore waved them away with surprising strength. "Not finished," he ground out through clenched teeth. "One more push." Drawing on reserves of willpower that defied explanation, the former president forced himself deeper into the connection, despite the physical damage it was causing. This time, he didn't project a memory, but a question directly into the hive mind. Why Earth? Why us? The response came as a flood of alien concepts so vast and foreign that his human brain could barely process them. Earth wasn't just another resource world. It was special, its core containing elements found in few planets across the galaxy. elements essential for the Queen's ultimate evolution. As Whitmore processed this revelation, he found within it a critical weakness. The Queen's energy shield, the protective field that made her virtually invulnerable, required constant maintenance of precise quantum harmonics. Disrupt those harmonics at the right frequency, and even her seemingly impenetrable defense would fail. With his final conscious act, Thomas Whitmore transmitted this understanding to ESD headquarters, a dying man's gift to the planet he had once led. Then, as his body surrendered to the neural overload, he projected one last thought into the hive mind. Not anger or defiance, but a simple human emotion the alien consciousness had never encountered: forgiveness. The unexpectedness of it caused a momentary pause in the Queen's response, a split second of confusion that rippled through the entire hive. Patricia Whitmore fought back tears as medical staff pronounced her father dead, the neural amplifier still humming softly around his now still form. She had no time to mourn. The data packet he had transmitted in his final moments contained information that might be Earth's last hope. He found a weakness in the Queen's defense system, she explained to the assembled military and scientific leaders. Her energy shield operates on quantum harmonics that can be disrupted with precisely calibrated interference patterns. David Levinson immediately understood the implications. We can use the lunar base's planetary defense cannon, reconfigure it to generate the exact frequency pattern needed to collapse her shield. President Lanford didn't hesitate. Do it, and someone get word to Dylan's team if they're still alive in there. They need to target the Queen the moment her shield fails. Communications specialists worked feverishly to re-establish contact with the captured squadron, while Jake Morrison at the lunar base began the complex recalibration of the massive defense weapon. The plan was mathematically sound but practically desperate, requiring perfect timing between an attack from inside the mothership and one from the lunar surface against a target that was continuously adapting to their tactics. As General Adams succinctly put it, 1,000,000 to 1 shot is still better odds than we had 5 minutes ago. Within the mothership, Dylan's squadron faced a rapidly deteriorating situation. The alien warriors had fully awakened, emerging from their membranous cocoons with terrifying efficiency. "Fall back to defensive positions," Dylan ordered as his pilots used their fighters' remaining capabilities to erect makeshift barriers from debris within the chamber. A garbled transmission from ESD headquarters reached them, breaking through the mothership's interference just long enough to convey critical information. Queen's shield, vulnerable to specific frequency. Lunar base targeting. Needs simultaneous internal strike. The transmission cut off abruptly, but Dylan had heard enough. "They're hitting the Queen from outside," he told his remaining pilots. "We need to coordinate our attack from in here at exactly the right moment." With the alien warriors closing in and their fighters nearly depleted of power, the squadron faced a grim reality. They would likely have one chance, a single weapons discharge, before being overwhelmed. Lieutenant Rain Lau, whose craft retained the most functional scanning capability, focused all remaining power on monitoring the Queen's energy shield. "I'll detect the moment it fluctuates," she promised. "But how do we know when the lunar base will fire?" Dylan checked his watch, the synchronization still maintaining Earth-standard time despite everything. "We don't," he answered grimly. "So we fire every 30 seconds, starting now, and hope one coincides with their attack." At the lunar base, Jake Morrison supervised the final adjustments to the planetary defense weapon, its massive barrel now aimed precisely at the coordinates, where the Queen's neural signature was strongest within the mothership. "Quantum harmonic calibration complete," Charlie reported, his fingers flying across the control panel. "Power at maximum capacity." The weapon, built using a combination of human engineering and reverse-engineered alien technology, had never been tested at this output level. Simulations suggested a 38% probability it would burn out after a single discharge, possibly destabilizing the entire lunar facility in the process. "Everyone non-essential to the firing sequence should evacuate to the lower levels," Jake ordered, his expression grim but determined. As technicians and support staff rushed to comply, he opened a channel to Earth. "Mount Weather, this is Armstrong. Base, we are ready to fire on your command." President Lanford's response was immediate. "You are authorized to fire, Major Morrison. Godspeed." Jake took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the initiation sequence. The gravitational destruction the alien mothership had already inflicted on Earth was visible even from the moon. Weather patterns disrupted beyond recognition. Coastlines altered, entire regions darkened by dust clouds from collapsed infrastructure. If they failed now, human survival became a mathematical impossibility. "Firing sequence initiated," he announced calmly. "Primary discharge in 10, 9, 8. The Queen sensed the danger too late. Distracted by the captured human fighters and the strange psychic attack from the dying mind of Thomas Whitmore, she failed to notice the lunar weapon's activation until its energy signature spiked to unprecedented levels. By then, her massive form was already shifting within her chamber, biomechanical appendages moving to reinforce her energy shield. The first blast from Dillon's squadron within the mothership struck her outer defenses and dissipated harmlessly. The second, 30 seconds later, coincided with a minor fluctuation, but caused only superficial damage. It was the third, synchronized firing, occurring at precisely the same microsecond as the lunar base discharged its weapon, that found its mark. The quantum harmonics of the Queen's shield collapsed catastrophically, leaving her momentarily exposed. Dillon's modified fighter, despite failing systems and minimal power, launched its final missile directly into the Queen's neural center, the brain case that controlled the entire hive mind. Simultaneously, the focused energy beam from the lunar base lanced through the mothership's hull, all defensive systems momentarily disabled by the shield's collapse. The two attacks converged on the alien Queen with devastating precision, one from within her own vessel, one from Earth's distant satellite, both carrying the same message. Humanity would not go quietly into extinction. The death of the alien. Queen unleashed chaos throughout the hive mind. Across Earth, drilling operations abruptly ceased as drones lost their coordinating intelligence. The mothership itself began to break apart, its structural integrity dependent on the constant quantum management only the Queen could provide. Dillon and his surviving pilots had mere minutes to find an escape route through the disintegrating vessel. "Follow the energy fluctuations," he commanded, identifying a pattern in the mothership's collapse that suggested a path toward the outer hull. 3 of their fighters had enough power remaining for limited flight. The rest would need to be abandoned. In a desperate scramble, reminiscent of the escape from the first mothership 20 years earlier, the human pilots navigated through collapsing corridors and chambers filled with disoriented alien warriors. The mothership's artificial gravity failed in sections, creating surreal pockets where debris and alien bodies floated weightlessly amidst structural collapse. "There!" Lieutenant Lau shouted, spotting a rupture in the hull ahead where the lunar base's weapon had penetrated. Beyond, it lay open space, and farther away, the blue curve of Earth, damaged but still intact. As they maneuvered toward this unexpected exit, Dillon activated his emergency beacon, broadcasting their approach vector to any friendly forces that might assist their final flight to safety. President Lanford addressed a shattered but unbowed humanity from the steps of the partially collapsed Capitol building, symbolically reclaiming the seat of government despite the destruction that surrounded it. "Today, we have witnessed both the darkest threat to our existence and the brightest expression of our determination to survive," she declared, her voice carried by whatever communication systems remained functional worldwide. Behind her, the sky was filled with an extraordinary sight. Fragments of the alien mothership burning through Earth's atmosphere, creating a display more spectacular than any meteor shower in recorded history. We have lost much: great cities, irreplaceable cultural treasures, and most devastatingly, countless lives. The road to recovery will be long. She paused, looking upward, as particularly large fragments created brilliant streaks across the evening sky. But we have preserved what matters most: our world, our future, our very humanity. What she didn't mention, what few outside the highest levels of government yet knew, was the most remarkable discovery made in the aftermath of the Queen's destruction. The sphere, which had been driven away before the invasion, had returned. It hovered now, in high orbit, observing but not yet approaching. First contact with a truly new extraterrestrial civilization still awaited. But now, humanity would meet them not as desperate survivors but as proven defenders of their world. A species that had twice faced extinction and twice emerged victorious against overwhelming odds. 3 days after the destruction of the alien mothership, a small contingent of ESD officials gathered at Area 51's newly reconstructed landing zone. The massive installation, once Earth's most closely guarded secret, had sustained significant damage during the invasion, but its primary runways had been hastily repaired for this historic moment. Patricia Whitmore stood alongside President Lanford, both women watching the sky with a mixture of apprehension and hope. David Levinson monitored readings on his portable scanner, confirming what the returning pilots had reported. "It's definitely not hostile," he assured the assembled dignitaries. "The energy signature matches exactly what we recorded before." General Adams, ever cautious, maintained a defensive perimeter of hybrid fighters, Earth's remaining military strength on prominent display. The air shimmered with anticipation as the distinctive gleam of the alien sphere became visible, descending slowly through the cloud cover. Unlike the aggressive, thundering approach of the harvester ships, the sphere moved with grace and restraint, eventually hovering 10 feet above the tarmac. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, without warning or visible mechanism, a portion of the sphere's obsidian surface simply vanished, revealing a luminous interior. "They're inviting us in," David whispered, unable to contain his scientific fascination with the advanced technology on display. President Lanford nodded firmly. "Then let's not keep them waiting." The interior of the sphere defied human comprehension. Spaces that seemed simultaneously vast and intimate. Architecture that followed physical laws Earth's greatest minds had yet to discover. President Lanford and her small delegation moved cautiously through an environment where gravity felt optional and light itself seemed alive with intelligence. "Welcome, defenders of Earth," came a voice that wasn't quite a voice, more a thought directly manifesting in their minds. From the luminous mist surrounding them coalesced a form that was clearly extraterrestrial, yet remarkably different from the harvesters they had fought. Where the Queen and her drones had been all harsh angles and predatory functionality, this being exhibited a fluid grace, its translucent body pulsing with complex patterns of bioluminescence. "We are the Resistance," the entity continued, the English words evidently extracted from their own minds. "We once believed ourselves the last survivors of the harvester's appetites. Now we find allies in your remarkable species." David Levinson, ever the scientist, couldn't restrain himself. "You're not physically here, are you? This is some kind of projection." The entity's patterns shifted in what might have been amusement. "Perceptive. My actual form would be incompatible with your biology. This interface allows communication without harm. The knowledge transferred from the sphere to Earth's representatives would later be described as downloading centuries of scientific advancement directly into human consciousness. In reality, it was both more limited and more profound." The Resistance entity, which called itself Memory of Lost Worlds in the closest human translation, shared specific technological information rather than general knowledge. "The harvesters are not defeated," it explained as complex schematics manifested in the air around them. "What you destroyed was merely one queen, one harvesting fleet. Their civilization spans galaxies, consuming planetary cores wherever suitable worlds are found." Patricia Whitmore, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "Why help us? You left when we rejected you." Memory of Lost Worlds form rippled with what might have been regret. "A miscalculation. We observed your species' natural caution and should have anticipated your response. We returned because you accomplished something unprecedented. You killed a harvester queen with primarily indigenous technology. In our intergalactic war against them, this represents a significant strategic discovery." President Lanford's expression remained diplomatic, but wary. "So, we're useful to you." The entity's response came with unexpected warmth. "You are more than useful. Earth humans. You are hope. Across 8,000 years of resistance, you are only the third species to defeat a queen without our intervention. The scientific discovery that most astonished Earth's representatives wasn't the advanced propulsion systems or energy weapons the sphere entity shared, though these would revolutionize human technology overnight. It was the revelation that life itself was far more common throughout the universe than even the most optimistic human scientists had estimated. Conscious species evolve on approximately 1 in every 400 suitable planets, Memory of Lost Worlds explained. The harvesters have consumed over 18,000 worlds with indigenous civilizations. The implications stunned the human delegation. Extinction on a scale almost beyond comprehension. How many survivor species are there in your resistance? David asked. The entity's luminescence dimmed noticeably. 17 remain of the original 143 who escaped harvest. Many succumbed to resource depletion or internal conflicts in exile. Others were found and consumed in subsequent harvester expansions. The entity projected what appeared to be a 3-dimensional star map, highlighting the current known positions of harvester fleets. They move constantly, consuming and expanding. Until now, we could only evacuate a fraction of species in their path. Your method of killing a queen offers a new possibility, teaching endangered worlds to defend themselves. Dylan Hiller stood beneath the sphere alongside the surviving members of his squadron, still bearing the physical and psychological scars of their ordeal within the mothership. Unlike the political and scientific delegation, their invitation had come separately, a specific request from Memory of Lost Worlds to meet those who struck the final blow. The entity manifested differently for them, appearing as a translucent approximation of a human military officer. Your tactic was unprecedented, it told them, genuine admiration evident in its communication. In 8 millennia of conflict, no species has successfully coordinated an internal and external strike with such precision. Lieutenant Rain Lau, still walking with a pronounced limp from injuries sustained during their escape, lifted her chin proudly. Necessity breeds innovation. The entity's form shimmered with what might have been laughter. Indeed, and now we offer you necessity's reward. The air between them filled with holographic displays of spacecraft, unlike anything humans had developed, smaller than the ESD fighters but clearly more advanced, incorporating elements of both resistance and harvester technology. We call them intruders, Memory of Lost Worlds explained, designed specifically to penetrate harvester vessels and strike directly at command structures. With your permission, we would share this design with your engineers and recruit your expertise for operations beyond your solar system. Jake Morrison supervised the integration of resistance technology into the lunar base's defense systems, his expression a mixture of wonder and intense concentration as he worked alongside technicians of both species. The resistance had sent actual representatives to the moon, entities who appeared as hovering crystalline structures that communicated through manipulated sound waves. Your natural satellite provides ideal positioning for an early warning network, the entity called Third Light in Darkness explained, its crystalline form reconfiguring to project schematics onto the lunar facility's walls. From here we can detect harvester approach signatures up to 7 of your light years distant. Charlie Miller, still sporting bandages from injuries sustained during the mothership's attack on the base, whistled low. That buys us months of preparation instead of hours. The resistance entity vibrated, and what they had learned was affirmation. Precisely. And more importantly, it creates a buffer zone within which we can establish similar defenses for neighboring systems. Earth becomes not just a defended world, but a defender world. The implication was clear. Humanity was being invited to join something far larger than planetary politics or even solar system colonization. We were being offered a place in a cosmic alliance, standing against an enemy that threatened all conscious life. President Lanford addressed the United Nations General Assembly, now meeting in Geneva since New York remained partially uninhabitable following the invasion. The choice before us is momentous, she declared to the assembled world leaders, and the billions watching worldwide through whatever communication infrastructure had survived. For all of human history, we have looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know with certainty that we are not, and that the cosmos is both more wondrous and more dangerous than our ancestors could have imagined. Behind her, holographic projections displayed the Resistance technological offerings alongside simulations of their implementation. The sphere entities have provided us with advanced technology that will accelerate our development by centuries, perhaps millennia. Interstellar travel, energy generation beyond our most optimistic projections, medical applications that could double or triple human lifespan. She paused, letting the magnitude of these gifts sink in. But these come with a responsibility. We are being asked to join an intergalactic war that has raged since before our species evolved. To commit our innovation, our determination, and yes, our warriors to a conflict beyond Earth. The Assembly Hall remained silent as President Lanford delivered her recommendation. I believe we must accept this challenge, not merely to ensure our own survival against future harvester attacks, but because defending conscious life, wherever it exists, is the right thing to do. The global unity forged in response to the alien invasion evolved into something unprecedented as humanity embraced its new role in cosmic affairs. Within months, joint human resistance manufacturing facilities were established on the Moon and Mars, producing technologies that would have seemed magical just years earlier. The ESD transformed from a purely defensive organization into the vanguard of Earth's contribution to the intergalactic alliance. Space warfare academies opened on every continent, training pilots and crew for the growing fleet of hybrid vessels incorporating the best of human ingenuity with resistance technical knowledge. Patricia Whitmore, appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Resistance Council, worked tirelessly to ensure humanity maintained its independence, even while integrating into the larger coalition. We won't simply be soldiers in someone else's war, she insisted during planning sessions with resistance strategists. Earth must have an equal voice in all operations involving our personnel. To her surprise, the resistance entities embraced this insistence on agency. Your species' independent thinking is precisely why we sought your alliance, Memory of Lost Worlds explained. Uniformity of thought is the harvester's strength and their weakness. Your unpredictability is a weapon they cannot counter. 1 year after the invasion, Dylan Hiller stood on the observation deck of the ESD's new flagship, the Thomas J. Whitmore, as it prepared for humanity's first intentional journey beyond our solar system. The massive vessel, a hybrid of human, design principles and resistance technology, housed a crew of 300, including specialists from 4 different survivor species. As captain of this unprecedented mission, Dylan felt the weight of both responsibility and opportunity. Their assignment seemed straightforward: establish an early warning outpost in the Alpha Centauri system. The broader implications, however, were staggering. Humans venturing to another star, working alongside extraterrestrial allies, extending Earth's protective reach beyond its native system. Lieutenant Rain Lau, now his executive officer, joined him at the viewport. "Having second thoughts, Captain?" she asked, noting his contemplative expression. Dylan shook his head, eyes fixed on the increasingly distant blue marble of their homeworld. "Just remembering something my father used to say before every mission. Fear is natural. Courage is deciding fear doesn't matter." He turned from the viewport, determination replacing reflection in his expression. "Signal all stations for departure. XO, let's show our new friends what humans can really do." As the Thomas J. Whitmore engaged its gravitic drive, opening a controlled wormhole in the fabric of space-time, Earth's defenders took their first step toward a future where humanity stood not just as survivors of an alien invasion, but as active participants in the greatest conflict the galaxy had ever known. Protectors of conscious life against those who would harvest worlds. And there you have it, friends. Humanity's greatest battle for survival against a cosmic threat that came not to conquer, but to consume our very planet. The question remains, if the harvesters return with even more advanced technology, will our alliance with the Resistance be enough? Or will Earth need to develop even more revolutionary defenses to protect its planetary core from extraterrestrial threat? What would you do if faced with an alien queen capable of controlling billions, of drones across the galaxy. Could you make the ultimate sacrifice like former President Whitmore did, using your own mind as a weapon against the hive mind? Or would you be more like Dylan Hiller, piloting advanced technology fighters directly into the heart of the mothership against impossible odds? The cosmic war is just beginning, and Earth is now at the center of an intergalactic struggle that spans thousands of worlds. Will Captain Hiller's mission beyond our solar system discover new allies, or will it encounter even more dangerous enemies lurking in the void between stars? If you enjoyed this epic tale of Earth defense against alien invasion, you won't want to miss what's coming up next on your screen. Our upcoming story explores what happens when humans reverse engineer alien wormhole technology, only to accidentally open a portal to a dimension where the laws of physics operate completely differently. Can our scientists close the breach before reality itself begins to unravel? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our newest science fiction epics. Your support helps us continue bringing these stories of human survival, advanced technology, and space warfare to life. Leave a comment below with your favorite moment from this alien invasion story, and let us know what cosmic threats you want humanity to face next. Until our next adventure among the stars, remember, the universe is vast, filled with both wonders and dangers. And somewhere out there, the harvesters are still hungry for more planetary cores.